Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Chapter 46 on my RLDR Custom Creation YouTube channel. And today I'm going to show you how I track my bandsaw blade. So stick around. I think you'll want to see this. Well, as I said in the intro, today I'm going to show you how I track the bandsaw blade on my bandsaw so that when I cut on this saw, the blade cuts parallel to the miter gauge or to the miter slot. So that's what I'm going to show you today. Trying another new thing today with my video and audio. I'm wearing a mic today, and we're going to see if that makes any difference. If you found, hopefully I can use this video. If you found it made a difference, please leave a note in the comments. I'd appreciate that. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. When I started my high school teaching career, I remember I taught industrial arts for, oh jeepers, 30 years at least in the school system. And when I came into teaching industrial arts, my background was, yeah, general carpenter, but I wouldn't have considered myself a fine woodworker, really. Yeah, I did cabinets and did that stuff, but in my opinion, building a set of cabinets is relatively straightforward. So anyway, I needed to learn a lot. And one tool that I had not used a lot in my construction days was the bandsaw. I had a little one. It was terrible, but I used it every once in a while. And all I ever cut on it was curves. So when I got to teaching in an industrial arts shop, one of the jobs or the tasks that I needed to do almost immediately was take the tools in the shop and kind of say, okay, these are going to be the grade 7 tools. These are the grade 8 tools, grade 9, grade 10, and etc. Okay? So often the dilemma is at grade 9 is shop teachers will maybe let their students use the table saw. Sometimes they'll do a demonstration cut or two with them, maybe one or two cuts in their project. But I thought if I wasn't teaching them how to use it, I wasn't doing them any good. So I waited with introducing the table saw in my shop to grade 10. So that meant in grade 8 and grade 9, the bandsaw was their main cutting tool. And as such, it was important that I understood it very, very well. So when I started in the shop, I put in long hours. I read and I absorbed everything I could on setting up the bandsaw. Other tools as well, but especially the bandsaw. And yeah, we started using it, and we found that as long as we were cutting either rip cuts or curved cuts, it worked good. But as soon as we introduced the miter gauge and tried to make a cut with the miter gauge, we weren't always successful. And after a particularly frustrating day, I remember being at the shop, either it was late in the evening or very, very early in the wee hours of the next morning, and I'm looking at my bandsaw, and then I'm going to move around to the back, and this is kind of how it was. I'm standing there looking at what kind of adjustments I could possibly make to this saw to have it cut the way I wanted. And I realized really the only adjustment here is tracking. So I started to think that somehow there needed to be a way to adjust the tracking to have the blade cut parallel to the miter slot. And as good fortune would have it, a little pun there, uh, the next morning or the morning after, I'm in the office getting my mail for my little cubby, and my copy of American Woodworker is there, and there's an article by that wonderful Canadian woodworker Michael Fortune. I have so much respect for that guy. He has done amazing work in his career. But he wrote a short article about setting up your bandsaw. And to me, that became the go-to article. I think it's by far the best article I've ever seen. And I didn't even have to read the article. As soon as he mentioned tracking, and I understood right away what he was going to show you or show me. And I appreciated that article to no end. And I certainly believe in giving credit where credit is due. I didn't come up with this idea. I don't know if Michael Fortune did, but it's amazing how many bandsaw books I've looked at after that. I've even taught bandsaw classes based on a book, and I've had to deviate from the book when it came to setting the blade because they would always recommend setting the blade in the center of the wheel and adjusting the fence for drift. Okay? And I might have used a couple of terms already that maybe you're not that familiar with, but I'm going to try to show you with a couple of prompts that I've made here. So the first thing to understand is that your bandsaw tire has crown, and that's represented by this board here. This is a blow-up of your bandsaw wheel. So the rubber tires on it have crown, and that crown is what dictates how your bandsaw cuts. All right? So this is my blade, and conventional wisdom wants you to set the blade right in the center of the wheel. That's not bad. In fact, that's a good starting point. If you have just changed the blade in your saw and you're wondering, you're going to start doing setup, put the blade in the middle, bring the blade up to the tension that you run. That's another hot topic that could be a whole video. But get it to the right tension, get it in the middle of the wheel, and start from there. Now, the reason the tracking makes this so it can cut where you'd like it to cut. Let's take a look at this. So we're looking at this wheel tipped over, okay? So there's center. Now theoretically, I'm hoping I'm lining you up right for that. Theoretically, that should work. But let's go to the extremes to show you why this is happening. So if you bring your blade to the front of the saw, of the wheel, you'll notice that you're seeing this side of the blade. And this saw is now going to cut that way. So in the particular case of my saw, if I had the blade riding on the front of the wheels, and I'm going to exaggerate this quite a bit, this piece is going to be going through like this. Okay? Again, if you're ripping, that's all you're doing, fine. Set your blade, set the fence to do that, and away you go. Now, this cutting not parallel to the slot, that's referred to as blade drift. If that's a term you've run into, that's what it is. When your blade is not cutting parallel to the slot, it's drifting, apparently. Okay, so let's go the other way. So now the blade's back here. Okay, can you see that? You're seeing this side of the blade. So on my saw, the piece would be going through this way. So I'd be pushing, and again, I'm exaggerating, I'd be pushing this way to get it to cut straight. Well, like I said, if you're just using the fence, that's going to work for you. But as soon as you introduce the miter gauge, what happens is, let's say you've got a blade that's cutting this way, and you put a piece and you hold it, and it's trying to keep the blade cutting parallel to the fence. Well, they fight each other, and ultimately the saw wins. So you end up with a poor cut, probably even a little hard on the saw, but it just doesn't work properly, and it leads to a lot of frustration. So even if you don't use your miter gauge on your bandsaw, I still think the best way to set the blade is to set it so that it's running parallel to the slot. Okay, how do you do that? That is a good question, and I'm glad you asked it. So what you need to do is you need to find a scrap piece of wood. Any piece of wood will do. In the shop, in a hurry, I've used complete garbage as long as it has a straight edge. It would be worth jointing the edge. So what I'm going to do, and normally, and again, I'm doing what I should do. This isn't the way I did it in class because I often didn't have time, but I'm marking an inch. And I'm going to draw a line along that inch. Okay, so now I've got a line 1 inch from the edge. Then I'm going to, and I did this in advance, to do this the best way, you need to take your thrust bearings and your blocks or whatever you have and pull them away from the blade. You want the blade to run uninterfered. Now I have a little bit of a confession to make here. I changed the top, but the bottom's a real pain to get to, and I had this saw set right before I took it out of adjustment for this video. So I didn't change the bottom, but you should, especially the first time you do it with a new blade, because you're going to find that blades tend to be somewhat consistent. So if you set it once, in fact, when I was doing this in the school level, at the school level, and we'd break a blade during class, which we often did with, well, not often, but occasionally did with my grade 8 groups, um, I would change it in class and do a minor adjustment to tracking, but I'd leave everything the way it was because it was all quite good. So anyway, that's just something. The first time you do it, get everything away from the blade. All right. So then what I would do is I would come here, and I'm going to move the camera around so you can see this. And I would try to cut freehand on the line. And you know what, though? I'm going to move you, and then I'm going to show you that. So we're just going to take a quick break, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, here we are. I'm not sure if you're going to see me a whole lot or not. I will try my very best to stay away from the line here because you need to see this. So if I'm talking off camera and you can't see me, I'm sorry. But it's more important you see what's happening here. And someday when my YouTube channel is rich and famous, I will hire somebody to run the camera. Okay, but we're a ways away yet. All right, so I drew my line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the saw on and I'm going to cut. And I'm going to try to let the saw cut and not guide things a whole lot. And I want to cut to about there, about halfway. So here we go. We're going to give this a try. Okay, now I can see this without having to measure. And excuse me here, I'm just going to step across. But, so at the very beginning of the fence, it's about, oh, I just moved it a wee bit. It's about 2 11/16. And back here, it's about 2 1/8. So, and the blade is cutting like it's too far forward. So I've got to adjust this. Give it a few turns. Oops, went too far. Okay. After, when you make an adjustment, always spin it by hand. Okay, I'm going to try that. And then you just keep on cutting. Okay, sometimes a little longer board is handy, but this is what I had. You have to be very careful because you can manipulate this a little bit. And I'd have to admit that over the years when I've done a number of these demos, if I needed things to work out time-wise or if I wasn't familiar with the saw, I kind of just made it work. But no, I haven't been here. I haven't been trying to anyway. So let's try that again. That's looking pretty good. It's about 2 3/8 the beginning, and it's 2 3/8 at the back. So that's all there's to it. It's really, really quite simple to do. I'm just going to lock my adjustment. Normally, I would maybe make a little bit more of a cut. But for today's demo, I'm going to leave it at that. And then what you need to do is make sure that your bearings are adjusted correctly. That looks good right there. And you're just going to get, these things get a little stubborn every once in a while. And just a reminder, your bearings, if you have bearings on your saw on the sides like that, they cannot touch the blade. If they do, it'll probably roll the blade off. Whoops, a little bit too much there. Now I've got a problem. Okay, so you can see that's why I wasn't anxious to adjust the bottom ones, because they're worse. I'm going to waste time here. There we go. Nope, that's touching. That's going to be a problem. Sorry about my good view again. Okay, now I'm just going to snug it up. There we go. That'll do. Okay, so I'm going to close this for now, but when I bring you back, I'm going to show you where that is on the tire. It's not in the center. Now, on occasion, sorry about that, on occasion, I've had blades that would only do this when they're on the very front of the tire or very back. I'm not exactly sure why that happened. Two possible causes could maybe be the blade itself, and the other thing could be maybe the tires wore out. So make sure that your tires are in good shape on your saw. All right, so with that in mind, let's clean everything up. And let's give this a try. We've got everything in here. Sorry, I'm standing in your way. Always try to have your work surface cleaned off. Okay, now I am going to put this where it should be, about there, and then I'm going to make a quick cross cut just so you can see that. And it cuts wonderfully. So let's let's bring you back to the other side, and we're going to do a little bit of a wrap up, and we're pretty much done. And we're back again. Okay, where did the blade end up? Yeah, we're definitely running about 3/4 of the way to the front. I find that most of my blades, these 1/4-inch blades, tend to track that way. So as long as it stays on, which it does, and it's cutting straight, I'm happy with it. When you have 12 and 13-year-olds using your equipment, it has to work and it has to be safe. My kids, when they're working on this saw, they get wonderful cuts. The cross cuts are good enough that we can join to them. So if they're building a small table or anything, we don't need to get out the shooting board and the block plane or hand plane and make these perfect. They don't join just fine. So I like this setup. It's worked really well for me. And when you are thinking about this, remember this demonstration. That is the key to all of this. So where the blade cuts so that it's cutting straight can be fine-tuned with the tracking. So keep that in mind, and that should really, really simplify your bandsaw blade use. My resaw, which is this big General here, I have it set the same way, and it has a 1-inch blade. And I had to do a little bit of work to get it to set that way because I think the previous owner had made changes to accommodate what they did, and I just changed it, so it wasn't a big deal. But anyway, I hope you found this video informative. I sure hope my audio worked out on this one because, like I said, we're trying it. So remember to like and subscribe and help me grow this channel because I think I have some worthwhile things to say, and it'd be great if you would join me on this journey. So anyway, take care. Next video probably towards the end of next week, and end of next week is Canada Day here, so I'm not sure exactly how much I'll get done then. The bathroom has made some real progress, so that's been exciting. It's yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to show it to you. Okay, so take care. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you when we see you at the end of the week.